What's up guys, Rick from DFS On Demand here, and this video is to show you how to find key stats for a PGA Tour event, where to compile them, and how to put my spreadsheet together. So this is actually a suggestion from one of my Twitter followers. So this comes from Greg Harrington on Twitter saying you should do a video explaining how to find the key stats that you look for on each course and why. Greg, thank you very much. Great job. I completely agree with you. What Greg is referring to is this spreadsheet that I put together each week on DFS On Demand. One of the tabs is the key stats. So what I do is I compile what I think are the most important stats of the week. I rank the players from 1 to however many people are in the field. I add those up and essentially get power rankings. So for this week, what we're looking at right now is the Puerto Rico Open, where Luke List is the #1 golfer that I have, and you can see how all those golfers are ranked down the side. So we're going to go through this one by one here and try to figure out where I came up with these stats and what I'm looking for to find them. So the main thing for me is really doing my homework out here and really doing research. I read everything. Basically what you find on my spreadsheets in my videos is like 5% of everything that I've digested during the week. So I read everything. As I'm going through my reading, I'm trying to find little key points that stick out that might be of interest for that week. So for example, I'll show you 2 places that I always go. The first one is going to be futureoffantasy.com. This is Josh Culp, who I'm just a huge fan of. He compiles a lot of statistics, a lot of great analysis. He does a preview each week, and I'm looking for a couple of things here, just things that kind of jump out at me. So for example, #1 right off the bat, and I don't need Josh's website to tell me this, you can look this up anywhere, it's a par 72. That might seem standard, but if you have a par 71 or a par 70, which might have 2 extra par 4s on it, maybe par 4 scoring is going to be a big emphasis this week because there's going to be 2 extra par 4s. There was a, what's the course breakdown? There was a tournament a couple weeks ago. I think it had 5 par 5s, which is highly unusual. So we emphasize par 5 scoring. That's where guys were going to make their hay. So that's something that jumps out at me. Josh always does a pretty good job of having a couple of interesting stats here. So here's a good one. Over the last 4 years, the field has averaged just 47% greens in regulation when missing the fairway, specific to par 4s, but 73% when they find the fairway. So I know that that's specific to par 4s, but what it notes is there is an importance on hitting the fairway here in an attempt to hit greens. So maybe driving accuracy is going to be a big play for me this week. And the other place that I'll go is going to be just the PGAtour.com. So Rob Bolton is a guy that I highly respect. I've had the opportunity to interview him on podcasts. I think he's awesome. So he usually includes in some of his articles a write-up. And there's always some really good tidbits here too, where he says something like, the course ranks 13th in putts per green in regulation and 10th in 3-putt avoidance. So that means to me, there's not a lot of 3-putts out here. This kind of levels the playing field on putters. I don't think you need to be a particularly great putter on this course. Those are the things that I'm kind of looking for as I'm going through my research process. The next thing I like to do is look at some of the stuff that I compile, of course. So I have game logs for the last 5 years of the PGA Tour. So I just kind of look back at these game logs, and this is, so I've got the last 3 years of the Puerto Rico Open here, and just kind of look and see if I can find any trends. So Tony Finau won it last year. What kind of player is he? He's a bomber. Maybe not very accurate, but he hits it a long way. Maybe if I read an article that says, the rough isn't going to penalize you that much, maybe driving distance will supplant driving accuracy, or maybe I'll do total driving, which is a combination of both. If I'm playing, if this is the Farmers Insurance Open and it's at Torrey Pines, and I know that if you miss the fairway, it's basically a half-shot penalty because of how thick that rough is going to be, or like at a U.S. Open, something like that, where there's going to be a huge penalty if you miss the fairway, driving accuracy is going to be one of my key stats for the week. But I also again like to look at the scoring on the different pars. So what you'll notice here is outside of Alex Cheika, nobody really has gone low on par threes, at least last year, but they made all their hay on the par five. So maybe par five scoring is important. And then I can just kind of roll through here the last couple of years and see, do any of these guys fit a specific mold? Are they ball strikers? Are they long hitters? Are they great putters? What is the formula for a high finish here, at least over the last couple of years? Okay, so let's go back to this key stats and the ones that I actually decided on for this week. So it's Saturday right now. This tournament has already started. What I decided on for this week was driving distance because I determined that it was good to be a bomber because being in the rough wasn't going to hurt you. Greens and regulation is always somewhat important to me. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some stats that are like off the tee. I'll try to get some stats that might be second shot stats, whether it's proximity, greens and regulation. I try to maybe get some putting stats, but I really try to get a lot of the scoring stats as well. So I decided on greens and regulation, birdie or better. This is a factor of knowing the scoring on the site that you're playing on. So birdie or better, you got to make a lot of birdies. DraftKings, even if you're going to make a lot of bogeys, rewards someone who makes a lot of birdies or eagles. So that is always going to be a stat that's kind of in there. Par 5 scoring, I thought was important this week. And again, bogey avoidance. You're going to have to be like 20 under par to win this thing, maybe 16, 17, 18 under par. So you can't make a lot of bogeys. So I threw bogey avoidance in there as well. Now, with that being said, I think that there's always going to be some stats that you'll be fine with. Always a core of key stats that you'll be fine with. Things like strokes gained, take your pick, right? Strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained around the green. If it's a course that has really small greens, maybe people don't hit a lot of greens in regulation, stats like scrambling would come into play, or strokes gained around the green. Birdie or better is always going to be up there for me. If I was playing on FanDuel has points, bonus points for bounce back, which is you make a bogey, you come back and you make a birdie on the next hole. Since that is emphasized in the scoring, that is something that I might take into account for my key stats. And then finally, where do I go when I've decided on the stats that I want? This is pretty easy. I just go to the PGAtour.com, and if you've never been on their stats site, it's fairly overwhelming. They've got a lot of cool stuff in here. So if you get past the boring FedEx Cups and top 10 finishes, like we can just go through a couple of these. So off the tee here, you'll see, okay, right off the bat, you have your stroked gain stats. If I was interested in driving distance like I was this week, I could choose driving distance. Here's all the driving accuracy, and you can see how in-depth this goes. I mean, I don't know for our purposes why you'd ever want fairway bunker tendency, but it's here. It shows you how important this is. Or if you have really narrow greens, really narrow fairways, and you wanted to kind of, see how guys score out of the rough, you could do that. It's really incredible. So, really cool off the tee stats. So I think those are important. Approaching the green will always be interesting. So greens in regulation tend to pop up a lot. What you'll see me do is sometimes on longer courses, I'll emphasize maybe green in regulation percent from 175 to 200 and then 200 yards out. So again, if I read a tidbit or I see stats that say, half the shots are coming from over 175 yards this week, I might throw those stats in there. And these are things that I usually retweet or I'll tweet out. So if you follow me on Twitter, it's at DFS on demand. I'm kind of giving you ideas throughout the week. Proximity to the hole is always interesting. Of course, birdie or better. Now that's birdie or better from, the fairway or the rough. But then you can also go, here's where I'll end up a lot, and it's scoring. So you can do, again, if you're doing, if you're playing on FanDuel, let's see here. You could do, here we go. First round scoring, second round scoring, third round scoring, and fourth round scoring. So if you were trying to decide between if you wanted to play someone in the first two rounds or the third and fourth rounds, I'd probably look for these. Front nine and back nine scoring, probably not something to be interested here. But again, here, par 3 birdie or better, par 4, par 5 birdie or better, bogey avoidance. These are all different things. So here's your bounce back if you're playing on FanDuel. So all this information is here for you. what you really just need to do is pay attention, find a handful of things, and really, every week I'm probably going to have some driving stat. I'm probably going to have some par 5, some par 4 stat, some birdie or better stat. So you really probably only have to come up with like 2 or 3 that might be very specific to this course, or might be an emphasis for the course that we're on that week. So really just start with, the basic ones, and then if you find something that, piques your interest later in the week, you can add that in there as well. Then I just list it out for everybody, total them up, rank them by their sum, and this has been fairly accurate this year. The last couple weeks have been really well. I mean, I know it's Saturday. They've played 3 rounds right now. Luke List is having a good round. Graham Dillette and Seamus Power missed the cut, so that was not good. But Spawn's up there. Mullinax was winning for a while. Percy's having a great round. Varner came back this week. Wee Kim was tied for second. Like, I know that's a really small sample size, but this has been fairly positive for me this year, and has been a way for me to identify players that I may not have considered otherwise. So, Greg, I hope that answers your question. Everyone else, I hope that's very interesting. If you have other suggestions for videos or questions or comments, please tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment in the box below. Okay, guys, talk to you soon. See ya.